Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the next webinar of Productivity and Profitability webinar series. This series is being brought to you by Meat and Livestock Australia and Agrista. The MLA Productivity and Profitability series is designed to assist sheep, cattle, and goat producers to increase the productivity and profitability of their business. The series will provide timely technical information relevant to producers across Australia. My name is Ellie Hayes and I am a consultant with Agrista and I'll be your host tonight. In this webinar, we are thrilled to have Tim Goal join us to discuss BredWell FedWell and setting up your breeding flock for success. Before I hand over to Tim, though, I would like you to cover off some housekeeping of this webinar. Tonight's webinar is being recorded and a copy of the recording will be available on the Agrista and MLA websites. We invite you to ask questions for Tim throughout the webinar and we will address them at the end of the webinar. To ask questions, head over to slido.com and enter the code FEB 2025 PP. To gauge our audience tonight, I would like to start with a short introductory survey for all of you to fill out. If you can simply scan the QR code on the screen to access Slido if you haven't already logged in. I won't display all the answers on here, but I find this one is a good one to display to show who's in the room tonight. So what best describes your role in the industry? So I will wait a few minutes. And if there's anyone new coming on now, we're just doing a quick gauge on the audience in tonight. So if you can scan the QR code and answer the intro survey. I'll just wait for a couple more minutes, Tim, while they fill out.
Yes, going to start pumping my own tyres in the survey. No, kidding.
Oh, there's still a few more. We'll just wait one more minute. If you have just joined us, we're just doing a quick intro survey to gauge the audience tonight. Not 50-50. I'll keep going. That's it. So for those of you that don't know Tim is the owner of the Flocks Sake, a sheep-focused veterinary consultancy. With over 14 years of experience, Tim's passion for sheep and production began during his school holidays on sheep stations in Longreach. He has worked across Australia and internationally, including managing the Western Rivers Veterinary Group for 7 years. In 2019, he gained advanced qualifications in sheep medicine. Tim founded For Flocks Sake in 2020 to provide expert advice and services tailored to the sheep industry. We're excited to have you on tonight, Tim.
Oh, thanks for having me.
I'll pass over to you now. I will stop sharing my screen. I get into and let you share yours.
There we go. How's that, Ellie? Has that come up?
Yeah, that's come up, Ian.
Perfect. Hello, everyone. Welcome to tonight. Everyone is super busy, so thank you for giving up your time. Probably over the next 40-ish kind of minutes, where really the purpose of tonight's talk is to kind of talk a little bit from the, I suppose, the fundamentals of the BredWell FedWell and how we think about in that framework setting up your breeding flock for success. Some of this will be straight content as a little bit of a teaser, and some of it will be a little bit of kind of what we're thinking at the moment, and as we kind of roll through. So us, who are we? Yeah, thanks for the introduction, Ellie. Tim Gull, vet by trade. My kind of journey into the full-time sheep world is basically coming from a vet background. You know, we had a vet clinic, Western Rivers Veterinary Group, based in Warren and Nyngan. And during this period, we were doing a bit of, myself and a business partner I had at the time, Trevor, and a really good group of vets. We were doing a lot of preg testing in Northern Australia, and we started another vet business up there. And I was kind of looking around going, like, why are we doing, you know, so much cattle work in Northern Australia when we're, you know, on the western edge of the fourth biggest sheep area zone, according to MLA? You know, we had really strong merino studs around us, you know, Haddon, Reggie, Labra, and we thought we really should be, you know, servicing our sheep clients at a high level. So we started a sheep scanning run, which is a great technical service, and that's probably when I probably would call my, you know, come to sheep Jesus moment, when I realized why sheep are better than cattle. You know, and why sheep are better than cattle is because basically if you stack all the little things up, suddenly you you know, you can get your net reproduction rate, you know, over 100%, where the best thing you can do if you're a cattle breeder is, you know, we get, what are we going to put in the spreadsheet? We're going to wean 85% maybe, 90% if you're killing it. But, you know, and that really intrigued me. But the challenges for you know, sheep breeding, as everyone in the producers will definitely know this, is that although we stack a few things up, we, you know, we get multiple products for those growing wool. We stack all those things up, we can get some real compound interest in production gains. But the downside of sheep production is that there's, you know, biology gets a vote, and that they vote in a really tough way if we don't keep our finger on the pulse. I'm thinking flies, nutrition, and, you know, our arch enemy worms, you know, in areas that have higher, particularly summer rainfall, where we don't see that, a bit more of a soft option. So as we were doing the sheep scanning thing, I was looking around going, oh, we really should be helping our sheep producers at a high level. But I had to go back and, you know, pull a calf or do the colic, and I thought, no, I want to do this full time. So great opportunity. I was able to sell out of my vet clinic and really kind of moved to Dubbo, kicked off this business called For Flocks Sake. You know, we gave the name, one, because I think I'm funny, but no, just, but really because we came out of that drought. Last drought, everyone knows that was hard yards, and that's what it kind of felt like. And I wanted to have a business name that engaged people and kind of made people smile. And because when we're in positive mindset, we can do a lot more. So 4 years later, our purpose is to help producers grow their best sheep and make every year a winner. It's gone really well. I think across the board, we've almost got 960,000 breeding ewes in our clients, and I do still dabble with a bit of cattle. But I just love what I do, and I've been so lucky in the way we go, and the sheep industry has been fantastic. So that's us based in Dubbo, but probably more to come back and go, BredWell FedWell, like what is it now? As a program, to my understanding, it's been around for a while. 2 years ago, it got a revamp, and basically now it's a one-day workshop where we kind of work through each wedge of the production and feeding cycle, and you can see the wedges up here. We're looking at, I suppose, the key drivers for what are the outcomes we're chasing from a better BredWell FedWell one-day workshop. Is one, to develop a custom breeding plan that's aligned with the profit drivers of your business. Two, identify and select sires using breeding values. And three is, that's the BredWell part, and the FedWell part is understand the fundamentals of feeding your animals well to maximize the genetic investment. Throughout the day, there's a fair bit of content, but we do get hands-on with sheep. I'll talk to the sheep workshop today, but there is a workshop, BredWell FedWell, for northern cattle and southern cattle, and some of the kind of resources will be pretty similar as we go along. It's a fantastic course, and probably one of the highlights, as you can see some of the pics here, is we actually have groups of animals that we assess visually, and then we kind of get to assess the numbers without the visuals, and at the end, the kind of grand finale is having a look at when we get the animals and understanding the breeding values, and it's always a bit of a competition and interesting to see how our opinions shift once we get a little bit of data. So for the producers out there and for the advisors getting around, this is what I think about right now. It's like, where are you up to? I constantly get confused for the advisors online, when people tell me when they're lambing, but my brain is always working about when are you joining. So this is kind of a little Gantt chart we built just so when we're talking to people, we can quickly go through and I think the people who are scanning now, they were November joiners. If you're scanning in March or December, and we just kind of follow this through, and it gives me a really good feel for where people are up to in their management calendar. For a lot of people in Central West New South Wales, we're either joining or we're coming up to joining. And that's what I kind of think about, I suppose, as the key kind of production kind of items for discussion tonight, for everyone in the sheep game. So what's the pre-joining program? One of our big, I suppose, values in our business is we often talk about controlling what you can control. Stephen Covey, he was the guy who wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. He talked about the spheres of influence, and I love it. It's a great analogy for saying, what do we spend our energy on? The inner circle, we get to spend our energy on things actually we have direct impact on. What am I going to eat for dinner? What products I'm going to use to drench my animals. From the next step out will be things that we've got, some control over. Our relationships with our agents, with our vets or advisors, our wool reps. Those things we can have some influence on. Shearers, again, some influence on that. Then, of course, the greater sphere is that, those things that we don't have much influence on. And I'm thinking along the lines of market forces. So circling back around, the pre-joining program is 100% controllable because you can control the quality of rams that go out to join, you can control the quality of ewes going out, and you can get some really good, easy metrics through body condition scoring to give you a bit of an idea of what's going on. Why I think this pre-joining space is so important is because I always have this thing in my head going, it's too late at the crate, at the scanning crate. It's too late to go, geez, would have, could have, should have. I hate that game, and I've played it enough to go, okay, this is where I should be placing a lot of energy because, I'll go back to, I love a good sport, cliche. I'm a rugby man, and I think about, it's all about, you think of a kickoff for any pretty sport, think of kickoff, you get, for a rugby example, if you get a really good kickoff and you're inside the 22, opposition 22, a few things can go wrong and you're still back at the halfway mark. You get a terrible kickoff and you're, from the get-go, you're on the halfway line, then, you're already, in a position, to play for the draw almost at that point in time. So the joining in my space is all about, hey, let's get kickoff really strong, because if we get it really strong, we can have a lot of setbacks and we're not losing too much field position. We don't get a good kickoff and we get an average scanning result, then the best we can hope for is average for the rest of the year. So these are the three things I generally think about through the pre-joining program, but also we talk about this, in throughout the course of BredWell FedWell, because they're fundamentals. So for our rams, with my vet hat on, teeth, testes, toes, with my experience, in vet school, we always get talked about, you miss more by not looking than not knowing. These are all photos I've taken, relatively recently. And I think, these are all aspects of a pre-joining exam that we can absolutely control. We absolutely can see these guys come in and work out, can we trust any of them? Where this fits into the BredWell FedWell is that, knowing who these animals are early in the piece, long time before joining, means if we have to find replacements, we can find those replacements that actually fit our breeding plan, compared to the idea of I'm about to put my rams out next week and suddenly I see half my ram team of feet like that. I've got to go around to find a ram source that's going to, serve my breeding objective with 5 days to go. We know we're not going to get the top of the picks. We're going to get the bottom of the barrel. And those breeding decisions last so long in our business. So on to our ewes, and this has been something that I've only really kind of noticed it late, but this is, something we covered in BredWell FedWell. It's just, can we control the quality of ewes that take the field? And that's through body condition scoring, during udder assessment, feet, mouth and teeth, and thinking about age. If you're not aware of the Fit to Join program, I really encourage you to go have a look. There's a ute guide, but basically what it was, and this got me really interested, there was a group of producers around I think Hamilton, Victoria, and they were saying, hey, we're following all the best practice guidelines. Why aren't we killing it? Why are we not getting the results we want? And what they did is they went through and did pre-joining fitness exams for ewes, hence the Fit to Join name. And what they found is, ewes that were unfit were 4 times more likely to scan dry, 3 times more likely to die between joining and scanning, and lambs from unfit ewes had a 21% higher chance of dying. So our ability to put those animals in the paddock and spend all that time and effort, and I know people in Victoria are doing a lot of feeding right now, we don't want to be spending all our time and money on these animals who can't give us a return on investment. So again, in that pre-joining and that selection phase, we can really address this area here. This is us. We've got some research sheep. So we did our own pre-joining inspection the other day. Again, you miss more by not looking, not knowing. This is Sarah, one of our gurus. But this is, you. She was actually in pretty good body condition score, but I look at that mouth and go, oh, ouch. Can I trust her to take that lamb all the way through to, next season? So that's our rams, that's our ewes. But now one of the tenets of BredWell FedWell is using body condition scoring. It's a central tenet in lifetime ewe management, which is a course I think is cornerstone for sheep production, merinos or not merinos. I'd enroll in one of those for the producers on there. And basically the whole idea of body condition scoring, this is a ewe I put some stripes on last week, is basically we're trying to feel the area behind the long ribs in front of the pelvis. And it really gives us an idea, and this is the kind of longitudinal shot, really gives us an idea of that fuel tank and the measure of muscle and fat within that area that is really metabolically important, which gives us an idea of the nutritional status of those ewes. The thing I like about body condition scoring is, for the advisors online, you guys might be gurus, but I look when I do, pasture estimates and take samples and feed tests, and sometimes my estimations can be pretty out. But the best thing about body condition scoring from a tactical and producer's point of view is that the sheep don't lie. They really give us a really good feel for what's going on. Once we get a number based on that, then we've got an ability to predict what's happening, and we can ask that question, if so, why so? If not, why not? What will this mean going forward? And can I or should I do something about it? So this is getting tactical, you know, and I thought I'd just show this app. I know everyone gets a bit, you know, taken back, so many apps, but this is an app that I love. If you can see it on screen, lifetime ewe management. The price is right, it's free. And then basically what it is you can see on the screen there that you can walk down, you know, your race, or, you know, this is kind of leading into our scanning crate, and basically it gives you this touch screen here. Super easy. It can do feed calculations for you as well. And you just kind of run down the race and you just punch it in. And then you get a condition score here, you know, get to the magic number, you know, which is usually about 50, and then you get a really good number. Once I've got a number, I've got an idea where I sit. You know, again, the old adage, you know, you can manage what you can measure. But I think this is a fantastic tool to get tactical on farm and give you an idea. Why it's so important in the pre-joining space is that if I do this, you know, 6 weeks out, 10 weeks out, I actually know what my trajectory is for coming into joining and what it'll mean scanning, and whether, you know, I can do that. I should do that. And for those feeding in Victoria, it gives you a really good idea of, you know, of what actually is happening in your feeding program. Are you getting the outcomes you want? So again, getting tactical, coming back around, you know, to the content for BredWell FedWell. This is something we talk a lot about through the whole course in each one of those wedges, is that what is the condition score, what are our targets, and where should we be heading, and what does it mean? So this is coming through. This is for merinos, and you can see, you know, I always think about the magic number for me is 3. You know, I want to come into this joining period, which is a lot for right now. So for everyone coming into joining, you know, the magic numbers is body condition score 3, if you can get there. We'll see in a second that little increments in the early stages can make a big difference. So, but also we get the maternals as well. So we can see some of the targets there change differently. A lot of, you know, the targets will be set from a southern-based system, trying to take advantage of that big spring flush, get some body condition score. And, you know, again, once we've got a full or heavily full fuel tank, we can use that a little bit to get the best production and economic gains coming forward. So coming through the course, it's, you know, gives us an opportunity to talk about, you know, merinos, maternals, and, you know, some of the ideas we might have, you know, for shedding sheep for those who've got shedding sheep. So that's great, Tim. I love the idea of it, but what does it really mean? And this is a graph I pulled from Lifetime Wool, which basically shows you the probability of scanning a single, twin, or dry based on body condition score. And so what we can see here is that as body condition score goes up, so this will be merino data, that as it goes up, the number of singles, you know, will go up a little bit, then they'll come down. The dries and the brown will go down as we go through. And then somewhere between 2 and 3 in here, depending on your genetics, you'll start converting. We'll start going from the single to the twinner. So this is when I talked about, well, if we're going to do some feeding and we're doing it a bit tough, you know, what will it cost us to get a little bit further? Because we can ride that kind of body condition score curve up to get a better result from joining. So when I think about it, you know, on the individual use side, we've got the fuel tank. For us as producers, advisors, that's our altimeter. Where are we sitting? Again, really keen to work through that through the whole production system. Great. So that's kind of the pre-joining section. The rams have gone in. Here's some Dorpers down at Wentworth. You know, what next? So this is my pro tip, is that, you know, the day your rams go in is the day you book a scanner. You know, scanning, we're going to talk about the dates in a second, but scanners, the really good ones, they've got a full dance card. You want to make sure, just like, again, of those controllables, what can I control? I can control how organized I am, and I control my communication with my, you know, top tier service providers, and scanners would be one of those in my book. So simple, easy. Rams go in, get your iPhone, get your phone, text your scanner, rams are in. You know, when are you going to come? I've got a client where we've had some challenges, nutritional challenges. I know his scanner, is one of the top guys in New South Wales. One of the things we did this week as the Rams went in, I rang up and said, I think we're going to have some challenges. How do you want to play this? What's your thoughts? And we worked out a little bit of a strategy to make sure that we can fit in with his calendar and get the best outcomes in terms of accuracy. So simple tip. So scanning, does it make money? Really? Again, great resource developed by AWI and MLA. That's relatively recent, the value of pregnancy scanning. This is really kind of simple stuff. Ballpark scanning costs, they put it around about $1.17 for twinning, including some labor. So when we kind of start decanting that through and go, well, return on investment for just selling the dries came in, I put $1.17 in, I get $1.85 back. So 58%. That's pretty good. You take that in the share market any day of the week. Return on investment for taking better care of your pregnant animals comes in at $2.65. And then if you put all the things in, managing mob sizes and everything, we're looking at $5.55 or 374% according to my maths. Either way, it's a fantastic opportunity to get runs on the board, and I know all the advisors on tonight will be all over it. What can you do with the data, from scanning? We talk about nutrition a lot in the FedWell part of this, and each wedge we address the nutritional concerns or needs of the animals. So we talk about with this data, we can think about allocating paddocks based on mobs, multiples, earlies, late pregnants. From the other end of the spectrum, we can start restricting access for animals that have got really high body condition score, play the body condition score game economically, but also some of the other things that I really like thinking about, mob sizes, lambing preparation. We know paddocks make a difference. We know pasture levels make a difference. We know privacy makes a difference. And we know that there's some paddocks on farm that for whatever reason, like that is not completely obvious to people, that some are better than others. And this is, again, with that scanning data, we can really get a really good feel for, in that sense, what goes into the paddock, what's coming out. And we go back to that question. If so, why so? If not, why not? So how does it drive lamb survivability? And in my mind, the biggest driver of the lamb survivability is because it helps drive that link between birth weight and lamb survivability. So here, this graph, we talk a bit about this in BredWell FedWell, is we've got survival to weaning and birth weight. And you can see here the different sheep variations. And you see here, there's a sweet spot. The biggest driver of lamb birth weight will be nutrition. There's genetic components in that for sure, but nutrition. And so we can measure nutrition in our use through using body condition scoring, and we can manage nutrition by understanding of girls who are, getting it done, they're pregnant. We can manage the nutrition of the pregnancies based on needs, singles, twins, triplets. So again, that scanning ability to use scanning data is fantastic because it helps us drive lamb survivability, as one of the key drivers. So why is timing so important, and what are the issues with accuracy? There's always some discussion about scanner accuracy. Having done a bit of scanning myself, I certainly get a few text messages going, congratulations, Tim. We've weaned, marked more than 100% of the singles. I get that every now and again because there are some challenges with accuracy and why that timing is so important. So basically, at 90 days of age, take a step back. Ultrasounds love fluid, they hate bone, which is why we get ultrasounds on our abdomen. X-rays, they love bone, they love dense objects. That's why when we fall off a motorbike and break our arm, we get an X-ray. If we've got something wrong with our lungs, typically we'll get an X-ray because there's so much bone there. Ultrasounds hate bone, but they love fluid. So we know that at about 90 days of gestation, those, single bearing lambs are probably about the size of a Coke can. And so what happens though, after 90 days gestation, that the sound waves, remember they hate bone, they can't go up through the abdomen. There's a little screen if you ever ducked your head inside the tent. the sound waves come up. They usually come up from the bottom there, come up, they'll hit that lamb and bounce back. If that lamb is too big and the bones have ossified, which is the fancy way of kind of, getting more solid, that sound wave will bounce back and we'll lose the ability to see what's beyond it. So our scanning accuracy goes all the way down. So typically I say, 85 to 90 days after rams go in is the best time to get that best picture, that best accuracy. If you're driving really hard in the triplet space, that might come forward a little bit earlier, but which is why I always go back to that, the day the rams go in is the day you book a scan and say, this is what we're doing, our joining length, this is what we're trying to achieve, and let your scanner kind of have a bit of a think about that and go, hey, the best date for me to provide you with the most accurate data will be this date, will be 80 days from rams in, or whatever the preference is. And of course, the challenges with timing is that if it's less than 35 days, and I'd probably go less than 42 days, they're just too small and we miss them. So again, they're the kind of challenges. If we don't get that timing right, we can have a lot of challenges driving that accuracy. So what are some other factors driving scanning success? I don't know how many people follow Crap Loading Ramps Australia. I think this is a cracker, and we all have been there and been there, done that. I put this up because I think about, if you're trying to get really good results from your scanning, then you really, have to think about the quality of your facilities and how you line it up. This is the joke in this Facebook group is that, we can't load trucks really well, with crappy loading ramps. Some great footage in there. I'd highly recommend following it. So the idea is the same. We want to prepare and control as much as we can control to get the best outcome and help that scanner get the best accuracy and the best image. So again, we've talked about timing. Off feed, if you have a really dry period, those ewes through the high NDF, or how quickly they can punch through the pasture, poor quality pasture stays in that rumen longer. So you need to think about how long off feed, because they might need a lot longer off feed. Labour, you need a couple of labour units. If you're going to try and get through a lot of numbers, you need at least 2 or 3 guys or girls to do it really well. Facilities, naturally, we've got to have yards that will flow well, because typically what happens if we put too much pressure on the scanner to get through a lot of numbers in poor yards, everyone gets frustrated. How good of a job do we do when we're frustrated? You can read between the lines. And of course, drafting. A lot of scanners will have drafting gates. If you're trying to maximize accuracy, in my humble opinion, dotting sheep makes it a lot harder. It's slowing down. The scanner's got to reach for the dot. So I think the best way to do it to get the best outcomes, so the scanner's just focusing on one job, which is, counting, like positioning the ultrasound and counting the number of fetuses. Get them to use their draft gates, draft them out. If you need to dot them or wand them, do that afterwards. It's much more effective for the scanner to focus on their job. And of course, the expectations, how many we're going to get through in a day, setting, the secret to happiness is low expectations, but when we rush any job, we lose accuracy. So again, manage that well. So I just thought I'd kind of pivot and talk about, like, EID is so topical right now. How do we use EID at scanning, and how can it help? We'll have, in a couple of years, we'll have, large number of breeding ewes on farm with EIDs. And I know a lot of people looking at going, well, how do I use this data? The scanning data, I think, for me, is the easiest one, because typically, one, as a producer, you don't need to bring in a gear. I think all scanners will have EID gear very shortly. And this is inside our kind of scanning crate. You can see the panel reader. There's a reader there. And so basically what happens, the ewe jumps into the scanning crate, her tag gets read. If you're not familiar with this, it goes into, a system. This is, I use Gallagher, so my pickies will be Gallagher. They record it, this is the number 012. And then your scanner will send you a file called a CSV file, which is typically a fancy Excel file. They'll either text it or send it via email, and then that data will live as Zoolander says, in the computer. The best thing about this is you don't have to do anything with that if you don't want to, but you can keep it. and I'll explain why it comes in handy for some really tactical uses. So EID at scanning, how can it help? Imagine you're having a cracking season, and we know, and we talk about this through the FedWell part of it, is that, we get different aspects of quality and quantity in our pastures. We've got different times of the year when that will happen, and we kind of use a lot of the tools in BredWell FedWell to kind of start thinking about that, and battle testing these ideas. But if you're having a massive season and you've actually got the benefit of trying to really kind of graze those animals in phase 2 and maximize your quality and quantity interaction and keep chewing it down to keep it in phase 2, you've got an ability then at scanning to actually box mobs to maximize your stocking rate and keep on the attack. Keep those plants growing in phase 2 where our quality is at its best. So easy, and then you can unbox them when we come into all the great little tactics and tools for lambing. But this is probably one I think about the most for on-farm tactical use is, we've done this scanning. We spent, a day or two getting them in, getting them out. That's all great. And someone leaves the bloody gate open. What do we do now? We're going to do this whole job again? No, it's really easy. And I think this is where the exciting bit comes from using EID at scanning, is that from that list, you scan essentially, you can create a draft list. Oh, this is the Gallagher example, but you can cut a draft list where it just goes dries, singles, twins. Now, you don't need an auto drafter to do this. You can do this on a stick reader with a can of paint, or, you can run that through an auto drafter. And really quickly, we've gone from, who left that bloody gate open? The job's a mess, to now we can go, actually, we can unbox that mob relatively easily. So kind of keep going forward through this kind of joining. How long is the final series? I think of it like a final series because typically 5 weeks, that's the grand final, bang, particularly for the rams. You can see here is how long is the optimum joining period, and you can see here as we go through the length of joining, pretty much when you get to 35 days, this is lambs, this is from AWI lifetime wool data, which we do talk about, is that, the lamb scanned and, the hog gets shorn. But I just think about realistically the lamb scanned. Once we hit about 35 days or 5 weeks, that amount of pregnancies really kind of plateaus. We don't get, big gains by having really long joinings. But what we do gain by having nice, tight 5-week joinings is we get so much better optionality and management at the other end. We get to landmark in a tighter period, and we get to wean in a tighter period. If we're in nutritional stress, we're in drought, we can impose, early weaning strategies. All of those can happen when you've got a nice, tighter joining. I've got a client, and I love this. He goes, "Yeah, that's great, Tim, but the bank manager doesn't care about a late lamb." And I know there's some people in Victoria right now who are having this discussion going, we're really worried about body condition score. We're going to leave the rams in longer. So there's some challenges with that, but are there opportunities with that if you're trying to play that out and give yourself an insurance policy? And my answer is that if you are going to do that, we can always scan back to the original window. And so what I've done this in graph here, this is the same graph as before. We can see at a 5-week period, we plateau. But imagine if we kind of dragged that out longer and we had the rams in for 9 weeks, instead of 5. What we actually can do, if we scan, we go back to this kind of scanning, 6 weeks after the rams come out, then actually we can scan once here at about 11 weeks after rams in, and that will give us all the pregnancies that came in the first 5 weeks. But the downside is we have now pregnancies in there that we can't detect. Remember, you can't detect before probably 35 to 42 days. So what we do there is now we rescan the dries back out here at 14 and 15 weeks. Now I still have a nice tight window to lamb in. I still get to take advantages of all those, all the great management tools, get nice, clean, uniform animals coming through, wean early. But I've just got 2 management groups instead of this long, drawn out tail. We have a few research sheet we're playing around with. and these are some of we've got some white dorpers. We had a ram get in for longer than expected. I chose to keep him in. You go, oh well, bank manager doesn't care about the late lamb. But this is what I've learned this year by keeping this little rogue, and he's got some mates in there as well. When I should have culled those ewes, I kept him in with lambed late. All of the decision making we've made about these animals has all come based on the needs of these handful of little, the runts at the end. We've got to come back. I know not many people admit it, but I know there's some Trekkie fans out there. Spock taught us the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few. These late lambers in here, they don't add a ton of value, but I'm making all my decisions based on them. So, okay, that's great. Now we're going to move on to probably what I think is the best thing out of the BredWell FedWell program is you walk away at the end of the day with a written plan. I love this saying, if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. At the end of the day, we want to have a plan that's all about, my plan to achieve fit for purpose. And these are some of the great resources you can see here on the right-hand side. That resource there, we actually map out the needs of your production calendar, based on, those body condition score and their metabolic needs. And then we start like putting out your pasture curve in an average year and trying to see, do they match up? And what is opportunities there to, can we match them up, make it more effective? Or if we're not going to do that because we've got a cropping program, something like that, what do we need to think about to manage body condition score in those feed gaps? It's a fantastic kind of tool just to give yourself a refresher. So if it's not written down, it doesn't exist. We step through in BredWell FedWell. We start thinking about and just having time away from the farm to think about, well, what are the market specifications of the products I'm actually making? I've got aspects of quantity and I've got aspects of quality. And it's a really nice way to kind of start writing these down and fleshing them out as we go through. Because at the end of the day, through BredWell FedWell, we're trying to think about what is the animal that is fit for purpose for my farm. We're looking for fit for farm, so that's fit for your environment, and then we're trying to get fit for market as well. So you're trying to find animals that meet the requirements of your target market. We're trying to put it all together. How we do that through the BredWell FedWell, and we've got workbooks which come as all part of the course, and we sit down and we spend a fair bit of time on this and talk about it, not just from the presenter point of view, but in a group of peers with people who've got different ideas. And it's a fantastic discussion through the day. But basically how we work through is we step by step break it down. I want to produce more lambs, and then the first step is really to go through and go, well, how do I do that? What helps me get there? And we start laying out what are the managerial aspects of achieving that. So from there, we take those goals and we start trying to put it into our breeding plan. And this is what it's all about, trying to build a breeding objective. A lot of people push back on that kind of breeding objective. So we kind of dial it back a bit and we start talking about just a breeding plan. Let's get it together. So we take it from the goals, the managerial tactics, and this is when we start going into some deep dive into the fundamentals of Australian sheep breeding values, or EBVs if you do the cattle one. And we really kind of go through each, category where we talk about health and welfare, wool, meat eating quality, carcass, growth, repro, and start really trying to understand of what's in there that we can use, what tools are available in there. So we go through and then we go, well, here are my goals. What's my current performance? What's my target performance? And what's the difference? Some of this you'll know, some of this you might have to do homework with, but it's a great way to start putting that all into place. And this is what I love about it, is just step by step, we start breaking this down in to goals and tactics. Then, of course, we start thinking about, well, of all the tools I have available and for the animals I'm going to select for, what do we want to be fit? And we think about those traits that, how they impact our enterprise, how they correlate. We talk a little bit about correlation and what ASBV means and what does correlation mean. Then we start thinking about in our plan, what's our desired change, the time frame to achieve that change, and we link it to a breeding value. We go through, the tools available through the ASBV. So I'm thinking, growth goal. Then we go through, well, what are the goals associated with, ASBVs associated with some of those growth traits? We go through some of the numbers to try and take away some of that fog. If you don't quite understand what it all means, by the end of this one-day workshop, I love it. You'll have should have a really good feel for what it all means. Then, of course, I love a good book. Ray Dalio, he has a book called Principles, which he kind of talks about this. And I love it because everyone does have too much to do right now. So you can do less by prioritizing, find the right people, improve your output. But this is probably what I think about, when we think about a breeding objective. You can have virtually anything you want when you're breeding animals, but you can't have everything you want. And this is what it's all about, building that plan and start ranking things. What's important, what's high, low, or not to worry about. So as we move through that, you might go, Tim, I have no flocking idea about ASBVs. And this is where in BredWell FedWell, we talk about what I think is the ultimate cheat code for ASBVs, and that's percentile band tables. And basically what this band table is, it gives you an idea of the ASBVs you're interested with, and just puts them into the percentile band table, being 1 being the best and 100 being the worst. So you can see, when you're starting to look at rams and you might not even understand what that number means. You get to see is that number good, medium or bad for what I'm trying to achieve. So this is what we start mapping out this plan. My plan might be to turn off my wethers quickly. Maybe I'm turning them off well past 12 months. I want to get, down to 9 months. What's the difference? What are the breeding values? If I'm selecting size to drive my business forward, my genetics forward, what are the breeding values that I might need to look at? For this one might be post-weaning weight. And this is the great thing about that percentile band table. I don't really know what my ASBV current status is, but all I can go back to the percentile band table and go, I'm probably average, in that breed. So that might be at the 50 percentile. But, I know if I'm going to have an animal that will grow quicker, I need to be up on the ranks. So I might pick my goal as I want to be in the top 30% by rams, in the top 30% for the trait I want. Clean fleece weight, whatever your goals are. And this is what I love about it. It doesn't matter what kind of sheep production system you run. We can build this plan out for you through BredWell FedWell. So that's great. I've got all this information, Tim. I go out to the ram sale, and I buy all these rams. What now? How do I keep track of all these things? And basically we look at trying to go through and got this kind of concept that's all about ram team averaging. To do that properly, you've got to have rams with ASBVs. Naturally, you include rams in the most recent drop. You use the most recent ASBVs, and you've got to consider the traits important to you. Again, we kind of do this a lot because we want to try to really get a ton of value from our size, but also help you understand the numbers and where does it mean. So this is just a client's ram team they got a little while ago, probably 2 years ago by the looks of that. And basically when we look at ram team averaging, once we've bought the rams with ASBVs, we can just put them in a spreadsheet, and we actually do this as an example, through paper and pen. And basically we go through and go, okay, where's my post-weaning weight in that example? I bought all these rams, I've got a certain budget, so I've got to, think about that as well. But okay, so now my ram team average is 7.9. I come along and I go back to my percentile band table, 7.9 post-weaning weight. Great. I now am confident that I've got animals that are in the top 30%. And this is just a great way I love to kind of put it together so you don't get like bombarded with all the numbers, because the numbers do change. There's some, interesting idiosyncrasies about Australian sheep breeding values. But all I need to know is if I'm going to have a goal of an animal that I can turn off quicker, I need to be buying rams, in the top, I'll say 30%, but you might say I need to be in the top 10%. I've got a lamb factory. I need to kind of get, these things in and out utilizing that nutrition, and we'll talk to that as well. But that's great. Imagine if there was only a program that could do it for me, and probably one of the strong points also of the BredWell FedWell day, we don't cover all of these resources. There's just too many. It would go on for a week, but there's signposts to all the high notes, all these resources. Ram Select is a program where you can actually put all this stuff in. You can use another product called a Flock Profile, which gives you your ASBVs roughly if you're a merino producer. Some great tools, and we go through all those kind of tools as we go through the program. So hopefully I've kind of covered some of the high notes. It is a chock-a-block one-day program. I've tried to foot into 40 minutes some of the things we're thinking about right now tactically on farm, but also give you some tasters of where this workshop takes you. It's fundamental. It just nails it. And I think one of the things for me is that we all learn from each other. Like the sheep game isn't zero sum. You win, I lose. It doesn't work like that. If you've got an idea, I learn from it. Same with advisors. I'm from an advisor point of view, I'm always learning. Someone's got a different thought on it, challenges an idea that I have. So I'm always learning when we're delivering these as well. So since August 2023, there have been 29 BredWell FedWell workshops, 552 participants. On a satisfaction rating on 1 to 10, the average was 9. Recommended to others, 99%. So out of that 552 people, what is that? There's like 540 people or something like that who've said they would recommend it to others. To find out more information, register your interest, all you got to do is go down, Google BredWell FedWell. It'll take you to the MLA website. You can register your interest. You can find out more information. If you're a producer and you've got rams with ASBVs, you can host this. A fantastic opportunity. But probably for the advisors out there is that and for producers, there's a cracking resource for advisors out there to kind of get on board and deliver this program. But from a producer point of view, there are advisors who've been trained in BredWell FedWell for the sheep version, the beef southern, the beef northern. They're across Australia. So I'd almost say there's 100% guarantee that there'll be someone in your state who can run this awesome workshop. Guys, I've gone fast and furious. Thank you very much for your time. Onwards and upwards. Hope that's added a bit of value and get some pennies dropping for the advisors, including Ellie. If you haven't done the Train the Trainer, do it. It's a great workshop. You'll learn a ton. Thanks for having me, everyone. Fire away with any questions.
Thanks, Tim. Thanks for all that information. I seem to be having PowerPoint issues my end now. So I'm unable to share my screen, unfortunately. But if everyone clicks over to slido.com and puts in Feb 2025 PP, there is a question section there that you can ask a few questions in the last few minutes, and then there'll also be an evaluation survey. But there was one in particular, and I think you touched base on it in the last few minutes, Tim, is just, if they want to have a BredWell FedWell in their area, how do they approach that?
Yeah, for sure. This is just the screenshot I had there. Just Google BredWell FedWell. There's some contact information. Just reach out there. The administrators of the program will register your interest. But like if you've got a couple of producers at the same, you're interested, really you don't need, a lot of these are getting run on studs, cattle and sheep, But if you've got commercial rams with ASBVs, you can run one of these yourself. You know, get a posse together. Great opportunity. I see. You know, to link up with other people. And why you need rams with ASBVs if you want to host one is because it's, you know, we do a real Pepsi challenge. I love it. Is you go, you know, we go through, you know, we go out, have a look at a ram team, and then we actually rank the rams, you know, 1 to 10, which I love. This is a great competition. You know, it's not a competition until it's competition, right? So rank it 1 to 10. We talk about that, and then we actually get the list of those rams ASBVs, and we rank them based on their ASBVs, and then we go back out for round 3, the grand final, and go, well, hey, these are the rams 1 to 10 based on what are visual attributes I like. Here's based on the ASBV data I have. Now that I've got both bits of data looking at that animal, you know, does this change the way I think about things? And there's always a few dark horses in there. And that's what I love about it, because that's the, you know, the benefits of breeding values is that, you know, we get to take away some of those phenotypic and, you know, I suppose aspects of ram selection, and then we get to, you know, really dive down and see, well, actually, what is the genetic value that this animal's giving? So fantastic.
Awesome. Thanks, Tim. Another one's come through. Can I chase early growth and high weaning weights without blowing out birth weights and creating lamb issues?
Yeah, definitely. Yep, for sure. If that is your target, then we can go back. Hopefully, you know, this is when we start thinking about our reproduction and growth rate targets, is that we're trying to look at, you can find those animals, you know, based with that birth weight, you know, you're trying to find those curve benders. And really the only way to do that is using ASBV. So we can find those animals that have got moderate birth weights, but have all those really high, you know, post-weaning, yearling live weights, and genetically find those animals that can really, you know, minimize that birth weight and get all the good things to do. You know, fleece weight, growth, all those things. You know, some of the traits will be correlated, and we talk about that. But some, through the use of ASBVs, we can really try to find those animals who are just, you know, good at being a forward and a back. For the rugby fans out there, we all know how hard that is. So, but short answer, yes. Using breeding values, we can get a better close to that breeding goal.
Yeah. And if you're joining ewe lambs, does body condition goal change much prior to joining?
Yeah, definitely. We think about a lot of times with joining ewe lambs, we'll be thinking about body weight is one thing we talk about a lot more. You know, basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to achieve the highest body weight possible, really, or 75% of their standard reference weight, which is a lot. So when we think about joining ewe lambs, realistically, and this is, you know, some other programs that came through like Team 90 were really good at, is that if you're going to join ewe lambs, you've kind of got to decide to do that pre-weaning. Because if you go from, if I'm trying to get to say 75% of my standard reference weight, and we talk a little bit about that, then if you kind of go, you know, your standard reference weight of your ewe times it by 0.7, that's what the target. Take away the birth weight, we'll say 5 kilos. If you put that into your calculator, you'll be needing to grow, you know, like at 200 grams a day north of that. So the condition score might not be as important because those animals are still trying to build their frame up. So we talk about live weight growth in that sense.
And I'll just do one more question, and then if anyone has any more, contact myself or Tim after the webinar. Is twins and singles in rams heritable?
Yeah, great question. Twins and singles in rams is heritable, but we talk about this in the course, the heritability is quite low. So it takes a long time to genetically get there. But, you know, I suppose when we're thinking about, if you're looking in your breeding goal going, hey, I want to improve my reproduction rate, then you might look at another trait like a number of lambs weaned which if you're looking, say, in shedding sheep, it'd be number of lambs weaned. But if you're looking, say, in merinos, you might be looking at weaning rate, because they're reproductive-based ASBVs that might get you there, get you there quicker, or be another tool, to kind of put in your armory, going, hey, I'm looking for a ram based in these kind of traits.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Tim. Just one quick one before we have to go off. The app you mentioned,
Yes.
where do they download that and how do they get access?
Yeah, great one. It is. I'll just quickly pull up a photo if I'm still sharing screen. Sorry, guys. It must be getting close. Right, there it is. Yep. If you go into the App Store and you are going to search for type LTEM. I should have made a mention of that. It's the Lifetime Ewe Management app, based from the Lifetime Ewe Management course, which is run by RIST. Again, it would be a cornerstone course for sheep production. Just go into the App Store, and that's the little, I don't know if you can see that, Ellie.
Yep.
That little sheep face, that's what you're going into. I love it. It's super easy to use, and one of those great things in life, the price is right. It's free, so it's super easy. I can't say I love it. So much easier than pen and paper, which if we make things hard in life, we just don't do it, do we? So super easy. It takes 2 seconds to run up a race with that app. Get a number. Where am I sitting? Good, bad. Let's just see what happens. Doesn't rain in the next 3 weeks. We're going to feed early. That's kind of great little data. You got staff. Perfect.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Tim, for your insights into setting up your breeding flock for success. Thank you to everyone who has joined on tonight's webinar. If you have any additional questions or suggestions for future webinar topics, please reach out by completing the survey and at the QR code. This feedback helps us guide the future webinars. If you are listening to this as a recording, please complete the evaluation survey as well. Apologies, I'm unable to share my screen as my PowerPoint's gone. But thank you again for attending, and we look forward to joining us for our next webinar, where you'll be talking about fertility and fecundity in Australian sheep flocks between 2006 and 2019 with Gordon Refshall G. If you have missed last month's webinar, head over to the MLA or Agrista website to watch it. Be sure to check out our podcast series, and you can find it on all major podcast platforms under Productivity and Profitability Media Series. Happy listening.